The power of nothing. Why boredom is the door to genius. What if the most powerful thing you can ever do is nothing? What if true deep peace is not something you chase, but something that happens when you finally, completely stop trying? You keep chasing meaning through frantic goals, through digital noise, through everyone else's highlight reel. But tell me, when did simply existing become a performance? Imagine this. The room goes quiet. No music, no scrolling, no messages, no next thing. Just the ambient silence. The sound of your own breathing feels wrong, doesn't it? Like the silence should never be this loud. But what if that silence is the truth finally trying to get a word in? You call it boredom, but Schopenhauer called it awareness, and I call it the moment you finally wake up. Schopenhauer once said, "It is difficult to find happiness within oneself, but impossible to find it anywhere else." He believed that the happiest life is the quietest one. And today, we're going to follow that radical wisdom. We'll explore why being boring might just be the best, most revolutionary thing you can do. Because boredom isn't the end of the line, it's the door you've been too afraid to open. The compulsion of the void. Every morning, you reach for your phone before your eyes are fully open. The screen lights up. Blue light floods your retinas. Your thumb scrolls automatically. And somewhere deep in your chest, you feel it, that void growing. 3 hours later, you're sitting at a red light. 30 seconds of waiting. The light glows red. Your hand twitches, moves into your pocket. Out comes the phone. The screen unlocks before you've even decided to check it. Your thumb is already scrolling. Why? Evening comes. You're washing dishes, a simple, almost meditative task. Your phone sits on the counter, silent, 3 feet away. And you feel it. That magnetic pull. Like something crucial is missing. Your eyes keep drifting to the black rectangle. What is it you are waiting for? Later, you're in bed. You promised yourself you wouldn't. Not tonight. But your hand reaches. The screen lights up the dark room and you scroll. 20 minutes, 40, then an hour. Your body is exhausted, but you can't stop. Why can't you stop? Since this morning, you've unlocked your phone 63 times. Every single time, there's that same feeling afterward. Empty, hollow, chasing something you can never catch. Why does scrolling never fill the void? Why does the hunger only grow? Why does 5 minutes turn into 50 without you noticing? Something is watching you, studying you, learning your patterns, your triggers, your weaknesses. Every click, every scroll, every moment of your attention is being harvested. The pain of self-confrontation. In 2014, researchers wanted to understand something simple. How do people handle being alone with their own thoughts? They brought participants into a room, plain walls, a chair, nothing else. The instructions were simple. Sit here alone for 15 minutes. No phone. Just you and your own mind. Sounds easy. But here's the twist. The researchers gave participants a button. This button delivered a mild electric shock, not dangerous but sharp and unpleasant. Before the experiment, every participant said they would pay money to avoid the shock. Remember that. They'd pay to avoid it. Now they are alone in the room. The silence presses in. Uncomfortable thoughts surface. The restlessness builds. What happened? Most people pressed the button, 67% of men and 25% of women. They chose physical pain over 15 minutes of silence. One man shocked himself 190 times in that quarter hour. He chose pain again and again rather than sit with himself. The researcher wrote something haunting. Simply being alone with their own thoughts for 15 minutes was apparently so aversive that it drove many participants to self-administer an electric shock. It was unbearable. Why? Because something has fundamentally changed in us. Your attention fractures, your mind wanders. Every few seconds, there is that pull. Even your hobbies feel like work now. When did being alone with yourself start feeling like punishment? Your brain is trying to tell you something. that invisible hunger, that compulsion to check, scroll, refresh. It has a name, and it's not boredom. It is withdrawal, the dopamine deficit state. Here's what's actually happening. Your dopamine system is ancient. It evolved to motivate survival, finding food, forming bonds, discovering something new. These surges were supposed to be rare, but then the world changed. Social media platforms employ neuroscientists and addiction specialists. Their job is simple: keep you scrolling. They use variable reward schedules, the same mechanism that makes slot machines addictive. You don't know when the next reward, a message, a like, a new post is coming, so you keep trying, keep pulling, keep scrolling. It never satisfies, but you keep believing it might. And here's the critical part. When your dopamine system is chronically overstimulated, it adapts. Your brain downregulates its natural production of dopamine, trying to restore balance. You develop a dopamine deficit state. Suddenly, nothing feels good anymore, not like it used to. The things you used to enjoy feel flat, dull, gray. You need more and more stimulation just to feel normal. You realize you're not scrolling to feel good anymore. You are scrolling to stop feeling bad. The pendulum of Schopenhauer. There was a philosopher who understood this addiction cycle long before screens existed. Arthur Schopenhauer. He saw something fundamental about human consciousness. Hence, life swings like a pendulum to and fro between pain and boredom. And these two are in fact its ultimate constituents. Pain and boredom, the twin poles of human existence. You chase the promotion, the relationship, the new gadget. You finally get the hit, the satisfaction. But only for a moment. Then the satisfaction fades, and you're back to looking for the next thing. The pendulum swings between wanting what you don't have and feeling empty when you get it. But Schopenhauer saw a way out. He wrote about something he called inner wealth. Nothing is so good a protection against such misery as inward wealth, the wealth of the mind. Because the greater it grows, the less room it leaves for boredom. Inner wealth, the only thing that can break the cycle. But how do you build it? Carl Jung, decades later, explored this, calling it his confrontation with the unconscious. Years of isolation, of sitting with the things most people run from, the doubts, the shadow, it nearly broke him. But he emerged transformed. He wrote, "It is only in the state of complete abandonment and loneliness that we experience the helpful powers of our own natures. They are there inside you, but you'll never find them if you keep running." Solitude versus loneliness. Jung understood the crucial distinction. Loneliness is pain, the feeling of being cut off, isolated. Solitude is a choice, the deliberate decision to be alone with yourself, not as punishment, but as cultivation, as courage. Because it takes courage to face yourself, to hear the questions you've been drowning out, to feel the feelings you've been scrolling past. This is what Jung called the task of heroes. Most people live their entire lives at the surface, never meeting themselves. And the tragic irony is that the thing they fear, the silence, the boredom, is the doorway. Think about the last time you felt truly creative. Where were you? You were probably doing nothing, walking, showering, staring at the ceiling, driving with no music, washing dishes with no podcast. And suddenly an idea arrived, an insight that felt like it came from nowhere. Neuroscientists confirm this. They've discovered the default mode network, DMN, a system that activates when you're not focused on external tasks, when you're bored. This network is essential for creativity, imagination, and making connections between unrelated ideas. Your brain needs this space. Steve Jobs would pace for hours, doing nothing. Einstein played the violin. They all knew something we've forgotten. Nietzsche saw this too. He who completely entrenches himself against boredom also entrenches himself against himself. He will never get to drink the strongest, refreshing draught, from his own innermost fountain. When you fill every gap with stimulation, you are defending yourself against yourself. You are cutting yourself off from the only source of true, deep satisfaction, your inner life. Boredom as rebellion. Here is the quiet truth. What if boredom isn't the problem? What if it's the solution? When you finally let your stimulation baseline drop, when you stop feeding the dopamine machine, something begins to heal. Your brain starts to recalibrate. The dopamine deficit reverses, and things that seemed dull and gray start to burst with color, with texture, with meaning. Not because they changed, but because you changed. A walk becomes fascinating again. A conversation becomes rich again. A book becomes absorbing again. You regain sustained attention. You remember what it feels like to be absorbed, to be deeply satisfied by simple experiences. You remember what it feels like to be human again. Schopenhauer wrote about the genius. The mind of the genius is constantly active without further aim, and so becomes for him a steady flowing well of pleasure such that boredom cannot come near him. A steady flowing well of pleasure from within. And here's what no one ever whispers out loud. In a world that demands your attention every second, choosing boredom is an act of rebellion. You don't need to perform. You don't need to broadcast your life. You don't need to curate a highlight reel. Silence is power. When you choose the unstimulating, when you embrace the quiet, you become unreadable, mysterious, complete in yourself. The constantly stimulated person is predictable and easy to manipulate. But the person who can be bored, they've built an inner fortress the world can't touch. Schopenhauer concluded, "A man can be himself only so long as he is alone, and if he does not love solitude, he will not love freedom. Freedom, real freedom, not from circumstances but from the need for stimulation itself." The uncomfortable path. Home, I see you. You're exhausted, aren't you? You want peace, not fake relief, but the deep peace that comes from having inner wealth so rich that external chaos can't shake you. You can have that, but the price might surprise you. You have to be willing to be boring, to choose the unstimulating thing, to sit with yourself even when it's uncomfortable. Schopenhauer defined the goal, the inexhaustible activity of thought, able and ready to form new combinations. There you have something that invigorates the mind and sets it far above the reach of boredom. But that activity only happens when thought is given space. This is the work. The quiet rituals: wake at the same time, walk the same path, journal every morning, read physical books. The unstimulating act: cook your meals, wash your dishes without a podcast, take walks without headphones. The core practice: do nothing regularly, deliberately. These boring practices are how you reclaim yourself, how you resensitize your dopamine system, how you rebuild your attention. This is the work of inner wealth. So, here is my final challenge. 15 minutes today. Right now, if you can. Set a timer. No phone, no music, no screen. Just you sitting still. It will be uncomfortable. Your brain will scream for stimulation. You'll feel restless, anxious. Your hand might move by itself. This is normal. This is the withdrawal. Stay with it. Because that discomfort, that screaming need for stimulation, that's the sickness leaving your body. That's the addiction withdrawing. That's what it feels like to come home to yourself. Do it again tomorrow, and the next day, and watch what happens. Watch how your mind begins to settle, how the restlessness fades, how ordinary moments become extraordinary because you've discovered the entertainment was always inside you. You were never empty. You were just too distracted to notice how full you actually are. Boredom is not the enemy. Boredom is the doorway. On the other side is the target Schopenhauer spoke of, the one no one else can see. You can only find it in the silence, You have to stop running first. You have to endure the boredom. Be disciplined. Be quiet. Be alone. Be uncomfortable. Be boring. Because in the end, genius doesn't come from stimulation. It comes from the still, quiet, boring spaces where your mind is finally allowed to be what it was always meant to be.